And I'd say the other unique thing about my approach has been I don't always look for people with social experience. At Nationwide, I was sourcing people from customer service, or at Disney Channel, I hired someone from the online video team, and
Wow.
they were a great content creator because of that. But it's really about perspective. You can bring certain different backgrounds to the team that isn't as necessarily teachable, because social is pretty teachable.
Mhm.
And I think the critical part is, do you have the right voices in the room?
Welcome to Individual Contributor, a marketing podcast all about bridging the gap between senior leaders and individual contributors. I'm Kelsey Kozad, and I'm taking this one solo today. That's the beauty of having two co-hosts. We are definitely better together, but we are just as good on our own too. And I'm joined by a truly remarkable guest today. Kristi, I would love to sing your accolades and praises for 10 minutes if you'd let me, but I think our listeners would rather hear from you. Can you give us a brief intro, who you are, what you do, where you're headed?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kelsey. So I'm Kristi Daraban. I'm a 20-year veteran of digital and social. I've worked at brands like NBC Universal, where I created the first online marketing job for B2B marketing to get filmmakers to use the studio. Was in the CPG space at Nestle, leading digital for the ice cream brands and then later the beverage brands. Then was the first social media manager for Disney Channel, where I launched social media. And then was from California and moved to Ohio to take a role at Abercrombie and Fitch, and led social media for their three retail brands, including deleting every piece of content that Abercrombie ever created on social media to start over and reinvent the brand.
Iconic.
And I was at Nationwide for 6.5 years. I was the AVP of social media and was responsible for B2B social, B2C social, influencer marketing, employee advocacy, and lots of other things. Great team. And then as of last month, I started a new role at the Aspen Group, and I am the head of social media, influencer, and content for the dental brands Aspen Dental and Motto. So learning that new role, but excited to embark on a new journey.
So incredible. Hearing the list and the list of brands and all the things you've done to pioneer this industry is like very inspiring to me. I remember meeting you in 2016, which does not seem like that long ago, I guess, in the span of your entire career. But I was very early in my career. We were at an agency I worked at was hosting a mixer, and I remember my boss was like, she worked at Disney, and I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the biggest deal ever. Like, how do you even work at Disney? That doesn't even make any sense in my brain, because I was like 20 at the time and I couldn't figure it out. But you've always been super impressive and remarkable and warm and kind to me. So again, thank you for being on the show, and so excited to learn from you and to hopefully drop a little bit of knowledge to our listeners. You listed, like we said, NBC, Disney, Abercrombie, the iconic deleting of everything before the big brand turnaround. What has been your absolute favorite campaign, if you can even pick, from all of
Yeah,
those
there's
places?
so many. I was thinking about it, and I do think probably the one that I was most excited about was at Disney Channel when we launched the Disney Channel original movie called Descendants.
Oh my
And if
gosh.
you don't know about that, it is essentially all the classic princesses and villains and characters, and it's their descendants, it's their children coming together and having their own storylines. And we spent over a year and a half really developing what those campaigns would look like, how we would activate them across not only social but the whole company, because
Wow.
it was bigger than just Disney Channel. And so coming together with the rest of Disney and thinking about franchise and merchandise and different ways that we would bring the talent in, because one of the beauties of Disney Channel is you had built-in influencers, you had all this talent to just pull in naturally who wanted to do it, because it's helping their show, helping their film, and of course, in turn, gives you an abundance of content, and a lot of connection points between the viewers and the talent, which is like that layer that they always wanted. Is that I have that personal piece of that person, and I get to know them a little bit.
Yeah, man, a dream scenario. I had never considered it that way, but yeah, truly your built-in influencer team, and PR with the show itself, like it's just a dream scenario. Descendants is also iconic, so that's incredible. Are there any like surprise social wins that come to mind? Because to me, I'm thinking Disney, Descendants, Abercrombie, the whole iconic thing there, obvious wins. Were there any campaigns or moments in your career where you're like, this kind of took me for a loop. I didn't expect this to go as well as it did, and here's why.
Last year at Nationwide, we had launched TikTok in at the Super Bowl. And we were like, okay, we're gonna have this whole content strategy where we're gonna get all of our sponsorships and partners involved, and we're going to make sure that we're teaching people about our crazy boring industry, but like really try to give them content that they would relate to and find valuable. And one thing about Nationwide being a historic brand, almost 100 years old,
Sure.
is for over 50 years, they had the jingle. And so the 7 notes of, pure memory, and everyone can relate to and knows and can identify that jingle, always was something we came back to. So we would ask people to sing it, things like that. Well, last fall, a video was posted on TikTok, and it was a 5-year-old girl named Zaya Campbell with her mom, Erica Campbell, who happens to be a renowned gospel singer.
Yes.
Lovely family. And the audio went completely viral. And one of the things I think I was really proud of is we didn't want to step in and become a roadblock to that virality. It was more,
Sure.
how do we encourage it? How do we watch it blossom? So we were sending surprise and delights. We were whitelisting accounts to make sure we were giving people a boost to make sure their content was getting seen. We were repurposing the UGC. Then we ended up creating our own contest and sweepstakes for schools to send in their version so we could provide a contribution to their music programs. And the earned media was incredible. I've never been interviewed by the news that many times. I got to call the schools, so many articles written about it. And then we ended up partnering with Zaya Campbell directly and had her host this sweepstakes and become part of
Wow.
our ecosystem. And it just was completely unexpected, such a surprise. And to this day, it still has a ripple effect, which is so wonderful for the brand, so wonderful for the jingle, and for Zaya, because I think she had this unexpected moment where a video of her years ago resurfaced, which is shows the power of social. And now, as a 12-year-old, she's kind of seeing a whole newfound fame.
That's so, I'm not surprised to hear you say that the sort of like out of left field success was on TikTok in the age of short form video. And that's the virality just kind of coming out of nowhere almost randomly. Really excited to hear you say that, like, we as a brand didn't want to be an obstacle to this virality and like let it bloom. We talk on the show all the time about being reactive. And I think, especially from a social media perspective, we are all tripping over each other to react first and show up first and be the quickest and the wittiest. So talk to me about making that conscious decision, maybe selling that upstream. Was that a hard, was everybody like, we have to do something? And you're like, hold on. What was that like?
That's typically my role, is to be that voice of reason with leadership. And I think everyone gets excited when you're seeing impressions and videos, and having over 150,000 unique videos created from the audio. Was people were just getting so excited, but we were getting just as much engagement from commenting on people's videos, that we were showing them that that was actually more powerful by us being part of the conversation than interrupting the conversation. And I think the moment where we decided, okay, we feel like this lasted a lot longer than we thought. We were thinking pop in a moment of history, never thought it would go on SNL, never
Yeah.
thought it would, get Chance the Rapper posting about it, things like that. Once all that had kept going, we thought, okay, now is a moment where we're no longer going to be interrupting this virality, but we can take a step into the conversation and pivot in a way that's natural to our values, and would still give back to the community without it seeming like we're just capitalizing on a young girl who is a fantastic singer. So the way it all worked out with leadership is, I think, they understood that what we were doing kept the momentum going. And so
Mhm.
regular data and analytics, regular recommendations and reports to them was critical, just to show like we're not losing momentum and we're still doing the right thing. But then it was also, how do we pivot the rest of the content that we're putting out so we're not acting like this thing isn't happening,
Right.
um, but instead we're part of this bigger ecosystem and phenomenon, really, and trying to take advantage of it.
That's amazing. And the words that keep popping in my head are like discretion and strategy and experience. And I don't think a lot of brands have that staying power or those traits, maybe leading their teams to understand, to your point, how to play the long game and keep this going as opposed to react quickly and let it be a flash in the pan. So kudos to you and your team. Curious how you worked with some of the more junior people on your team, whether at Nationwide or wherever. Obviously, you spoke a little bit about being sort of the liaison with executives and senior leadership on making some of those big decisions, but obviously we're excited about people who are early in their careers or who want to get their feet wet or trying to grow to that spot. What's their seat at the table look like? How is their voice heard? I know you're a collaborator, so tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I was a one person show for a long time because people didn't know. It was when you see social job descriptions, that's how it was back then. It's you're
Yeah.
an editor. I was doing coding, I was doing photography. You just had to do it all. So for a long time, I didn't have anyone to collaborate with. And then Disney was really the first time I had one other person on my team. And she was like, we were glue. We were partners, and
Mhm.
we kind of split the work into, we're both going to do strategy. We're both going to do community management. We're both going to be thinking about campaigns. And I remember she and I worked together for a while, and there was an opportunity to go with the Disney Channel kids on a cruise.
Ooh.
And I, of course, as the leader of the team, I was given that opportunity. And I went to my boss and I said, I think she has earned the right to go. And I would like to offer her first. And
That's amazing.
she, to this day, still brings up that I gave her that opportunity, how over the moon she was, the fact that I didn't, trump her role as a title to say, like, well, I get to go because I'm the leader of the team, because I knew how hard she worked. But that's one example. I feel like teams are so critical. If you think
Mhm.
about social, especially, everyone's seeing different things in the world. There's way too much to consume. And for you to think that you know everything, or you're seeing everything, or you're identifying the trends is absolutely ridiculous. So I'm always leaning on my team. I have always text threads, Teams threads, share what you're seeing, contribute. We have brainstorms at all levels. And I'd say the other unique thing about my approach has been I don't always look for people with social experience. At Nationwide, I was sourcing people from customer service, or at Disney Channel, I hired someone from the online video team, and
Wow.
they were a great content creator because of that. But it's really about perspective. You can bring certain different backgrounds to the team that isn't as necessarily teachable, because social is pretty teachable.
Mhm.
And I think the critical part is, do you have the right voices in the room? Do you have different backgrounds? Do you have different experiences, different industries? Because all of that will help bring the team together to make better decisions and be more creative. So I'm always about making sure everyone feels like they have a voice in the room. I'm a very transparent leader, so I share everything I know almost as soon as I know it. But that way I can get the reaction of everyone on the team, because everyone's equal. Uh, everyone, I don't get a job without my team.
Right. That's amazing. I love to hear that. And again, what I'm hearing you say is diversity, right? Diversity of thought, background, experience. And even once you're in the role, to your point, my algorithm is totally different than your algorithm. And so we are going to be having two totally different social media experiences. So even when we are reacting or brainstorming or whatever, we're bringing fresh perspectives. I really appreciate that. Obviously, as a Black woman, I think diversity sort of gets like pigeonholed as one thing. And I think it is a big thing to your point, especially in our space. It's different backgrounds. We talked to a lot of people on the show who have journalism backgrounds. Journalists make great social media strategists, I will say, just FYI. But customer service, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Community management is so important to social media today. And I think there's just a wealth of experience and knowledge in that field that's often overlooked. So that's awesome. That's where you go. Okay, awesome. So it sounds like you're an amazing leader. What has changed in your career journey? I know you were a one-woman shop. A lot of us were when we started in the field. Obviously, you're not anymore. You have these amazing teams. Social media has evolved. We have a lot of social first campaigns happening, which is exciting. How's the landscape different? How are your teams different? You're hiring from different places, but talk about just that transition.
So I think today, the challenge I always had, even identifying if this was an area I wanted to be in, my background's communications. I studied video production in college, and I didn't know where I wanted to end up. I never thought, I didn't even have a cell phone till college. Yes, I'm dating myself. I think I had like one family computer that we used in high school, but like I was not a digital person by any means.
Sure.
And so starting at NBC Universal, the first thing I was asked to do was, hey, this website thing, can you like figure it out? And instead of shying away from it and being nervous, I was like, yep, I'll figure it out. And I went to community college to do coding classes and learn Dreamweaver, and then decided, maybe there's something here. No one wants to do this, or no one has the skills to do it right now on this team. Maybe this is something I can carve out for myself as a white space. So in my graduate studies, I pitched a thesis of how to use digital media to attract new audiences, and used my work as the case study.
Amazing.
And got to present it to the president, got the budget, got a promotion, and got to do it. So that was kind of how you made these jobs back then. You created them, you found the opportunity. And even now, I'm typically the top of the team when I'm joining a new role or a new team. So then it becomes the question of, where do I go from here? And a lot of times it's, you're inventing it, you're adding to your role, you're raising your hand for extra projects, you're understanding what you're interested in. I think the beauty of what we do in social is there's creative, there's strategy, there's analytics, there's media, there's so many different elements. So it's really applicable in a lot of different ways. And so people are leaning into the expertise of social media professionals in a lot different ways. So now I'm thankful that earlier career people do have some career path, and sometimes the teams are still small, but at least they know they can go from potentially a community manager to a campaign manager or a strategist or even a creative designer, and that there are roles like mine, whether it's an AVP or a head of or whatever it is, that they can aspire to, and they don't have to necessarily leave the field. Because there was a long time where I'm like, I must not be able to stay in social if there's nothing past this. I would just say lean into all the different aspects of it to really see what you're interested in. And I'm thankful that I've had the opportunity to find roles that gets to do all of these things, so that I am continually challenging myself and learning. And honestly, even changing industries is a whole challenge in learning new and different opportunities, audiences,
Sure.
strategies. So that's been a big deal throughout my challenges. If I can't learn new social things, is I can learn new industries and how to apply it there.
That's amazing. If you want to send us that thesis, we'll take a look at it. That sounds so incredible. I would love to look
I
at that.
do have it on my bookshelf.
I bet it was like revolutionary. It's funny to hear you say it now because it's like duh, but I'm sure then it was like, what? Mind blowing. That's incredible. So I want to pivot into some advice that maybe you might have for individual contributors or people coming up in your role, because what I'm hearing you tell me is what I call the secret sauce. It's what I have started to see out of really successful transformative leaders in my career, is the ability to have the vision, but also execute the vision, which is rare, right? Like it's really pioneering. It's creating the path in the woods, but having the machete to like clear it out as well. And a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people have one or the other.
Yeah.
So is there advice on how to maybe sharpen some of those skills, or what you've done to, like you said, find the white space and do the work to create the new roles and the path forward?
I have to say, it's going to sound like a surprising answer, but relationships. It's
Okay.
all about making sure the people around you are willing to work with you to get that work done. Because if you're thinking about that jungle ahead of you and you know it's the right thing to do and you have the team that can do it, typically the roadblocks are going to be people. And making sure that all the partners who might have a stake in it are aligned to the strategy, because without that support, it's never going to get done. So relationships, right? Early, often, always.
Yeah.
And that's within your own company, within your network. You just never know when paths will cross. Um, but everyone matters. I remember I started this practice back at NBC Universal. I learned the person at the front gate who let me in to work every day. I learned their name and I addressed them personally every day.
Yes.
And then you never know. Like then they would be the security guard at an event and they would be like, "Hey, Kristi," and not challenge me or worry about me. They would chit chat with me and then they would say, "Oh, you want to bring your friend in? Go ahead." So it's
Yeah,
just building that trust and rapport is so important, especially in a large corporation where there's a lot of stakeholders. You need to build those relationships early so that when you do have a big idea like TikTok, we approved that we were going to launch really quickly, which historically would have taken months, if not years.
sure.
Uh, it just took a long time for us to get the strategy ready so that everyone felt comfortable with how we were going to do it. But everyone knew we needed to. So it was good that we didn't start work without everyone feeling like it was the right thing to do. But that's because I had years of trust with all of those people. So invest in relationships.
That's amazing. It's maybe we're sounding like a broken record to the listeners, but we keep talking about trust, the T word on the podcast.
Yes.
But you know, excited to hear from you about the relationship building as a foundation of trust, as opposed to, we talk a lot about education, right? Like throwing data and numbers at people and saying, this is why you should trust me because I have all of these proof points. And what I'm hearing you say is, you know me, you know, like I'm
Yes.
Kristi, like you've known me for a while. Of course, you should trust me because we have this relationship, which I might argue is stronger than data, which changes. So
I
I
think
think
that's
it's
how
great
you can
advice.
start the relationships, is showing the proof points of why someone should trust you. But once you have that and they realize that your decision making is sound, I think you almost don't need the data anymore. It's like
Right.
they know that you're going to come prepared. They know that you're going to come with them in mind. And I think the biggest thing is always have their interest when you're presenting something. So if you're going to talk to a legal team about a new project, make sure that you've addressed what you think their concerns are going to be or how they're going to be involved instead of just saying we're doing this. And that will always open the door to conversation. And hopefully they'll see it as, okay, they want to work with me on this. They're not just doing this in spite of me.
Amazing. So true. Legal can be your best friend or your worst enemy. I think it's really up to you.
Yes.
I've always said that. Amazing. Okay. This has been amazing. So many great pieces of advice. Thank you so much for sharing your talents with us. I do have a couple of more questions. This is sort of our like rapid fire round where we ask a
Sure.
couple personal questions. Um, Let me find them. Ah, here we go. Okay. So first things that come to mind, you can elaborate if you want. But who was your favorite boss of all time? You can go all the way back to high school. You can go back to yesterday if you want to. You could say yourself, but your favorite boss, who did you learn the most from? Who was the most impactful?
I I've been very fortunate to have a lot of great bosses, but if I think about it, the one that always comes to my mind is I worked in the bursar's office at Santa Clara University during my undergrad, and the bursar gave me a job when I didn't necessarily was qualified. I had no finance experience. And later just became a mentor naturally and then a friend. We still talk today, and I'm about to have my 20-year anniversary out of college. But she was so empowering, so relatable, so transparent, and clear. And I just remember thinking, I hope to be like her someday. And I always respected her. I still respect her. And I hope to think that I do her proud.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so glad you said clear. Every good leader I've had has been a clear communicator and has been clear about what they want me to do and how they want me to do it or how I can help them. And everyone I haven't liked has lacked that clarity. And I think that's an important trait that a lot of people miss in leaders. So shout out to her, the bursar's office.
Yeah.
Look at you now. Okay.
And the challenge sometimes with what we do is a lot of times our bosses don't know what we do. Me specifically, I've hardly reported to someone who really understands my role. And so the
Sure.
clarity becomes even more important because both up and down, so
Yeah.
that we both can align on what we're supposed to do.
But it falls back to like we've been talking about trust, right? If the trust has been built, if the education is there, if all of that stuff is there, um, sometimes the clarity can come in communication. It can come in just I trust Kristi's going to get it done. But I hear you 100%. Biggest lesson you've learned in the last 5 years, and who did you learn it from?
So, being a subject matter expert, you think your world and your expertise is where you have authority to speak, I would say. And as I've grown as a leader, I think the permission to speak outside of that zone was something I needed to hear, that I'm not necessarily crossing over into someone else's territory, but instead I'm bringing a unique perspective and opinion to a conversation. Because most of the leadership teams I've been on were like either a fully digital leadership team or a brand leadership team. Um, Currently, I'm in a comms organization, so it's very different functions. And I didn't feel at the time, a few years ago, empowered enough to say, like, oh, I should have an opinion about what creative's doing or comms is doing. And my boss, Mike Boyd, said to me, like, you should participate in these conversations. We want you to contribute. Your voice is very valued. And that really gave me the confidence and the ability to feel like, okay, I'm in this room not just for that subject matter expertise, but for the years of experience that I do have, and they actually do want to hear from me. So that was a big thing, is, you don't have to just feel safe in your zone. And I'm not saying to feel like you have to voice up in a meeting or in a room, but a lot of times people will invite you to a meeting because they do care about your opinion, and that's why you're there. So recognize when that is an opportunity, and it will hopefully show that your skills shine beyond just your personal expertise.
That's amazing. And I mean, it goes back to you being intentional about hiring a diverse group, right? And team that has different experiences and backgrounds. And you yourself are a part of that diversity, right? As you ladder up and are in these other rooms. Man, I think especially as women, the imposter syndrome is real. And we're just like, I don't think I'm going to stay in my social silo and just not say anything about this. I have it with it's funny you said creative, because I'm like in awe of all creatives. If you can do anything on Photoshop or video production, I'm just like, you are amazing. And I feel like I can't say anything about that. So I think that's great advice. And that's awesome. Thank you, Mike Boyd, for passing that along and not keeping that to yourself. That's important. Okay, a couple more. Best advice you've ever received.
Boy, probably, I think I wrote a note on this because this one was always a tough one. I've gotten so much good advice in my life. I mean, I would say it goes back to everyone matters. Everybody has a role in the function of the world. And whether or not you're the person who is at the security desk or the community manager or the CMO, everyone needs to work together to get stuff done. And so respect is really important. My background is from a not great neighborhood. I didn't have a lot growing up, and I'm the first in my family to go to college. And So my journey has like really overcome a lot of potential obstacles. And so I think back to how can I give back to those people? But also I was a person people shouldn't respect or feel like they needed to respect. And
Sure.
so I always want to make sure that whatever job you're in, you're working hard, you're doing your part, and you got to treat people equally.
That's amazing. I couldn't agree more. And I love just learning everything I can about you. So we might have to take this offline, just you and I. I feel like I know so much more about you than I never knew. And I just want to know so much more. So that's super exciting. I uniquely also see you creating content as well and doing a lot of fun stuff. So let us know where we can follow you and how we can stay in lockstep with all the fun stuff you're doing from a career perspective and maybe even from a personal perspective.
Because we're social media marketers, I do feel like it can be hard to keep up on your own things, but LinkedIn is a place where I feel like I've really tried to give back to the community. Having been laid off in the past, I started posting job lists not that long ago, and I'm getting a lot of thanks and accolades for curating these lists. If you think about all those brands and industries I've worked for, my network is really unique because I have connections across all of those. So the lists that I curate are typically from my feed, and I just try to give people a connection, especially in this hard job market. But I'm also I speak at conferences a lot, and I'm about to judge the Drum Awards. So there's a lot of activity typically happening that I like to share, and just thought leadership as well on LinkedIn. And then my family has decided that they want to be YouTubers now.
Yes.
So on YouTube, it's called That Daraban Life. And on Instagram, you can follow my wonderful children, Bennett, who's 9, and Tavis, who's 5, and my husband, Christian, and I on all of the crazy journey and adventures we go on, which including will be Europe as of next Friday. We're going to do a little tour across Europe and do a Disney cruise and see Paris and London and Spain and Portugal. So you can follow us.
Gosh. No big deal. That's
no big deal.
So cool. I will definitely be tuning into that. Europe sounds like a dream. And how cool for your kids. Like you said, like a lot of your career, you sort of had to forge your own path and, find your way through the jungle, and your kids get to see like, oh, I can be a YouTuber. You know what I mean? This is content creation is a real thing that could be something for me one day. So super cool that they get to play around with that and do that in their own time, which is going to be super awesome. And you get to capture all these awesome family memories to have for years and years, which is really what's important, if you ask me. I'm a mom, so I'm sentimental about it too.
Yes. Like selfishly, I'm just documenting our lives and look at it later.
Selfishly, I want Google Photos in 2 years to remind me of what happened, and I can cry about it. Okay, awesome. Kristi, this was amazing. Thank you so much for hopping on. Anything else you want to leave the viewers with, or any questions you have for us? Any last words?
I mean, I think you and Meredith are doing an amazing podcast here. I think connecting early career people with leadership is so important. To me, I would just say you can be a mentor, but you can also be a mentee at any stage. And sometimes that means learning from someone who's in their early career. So think about reverse mentorship in your life and use examples like this in order to figure out what you still have to learn or catch up on, because a lot happens very quickly, and connecting people at any stage in their career is going to keep us all learning and good at our jobs. So thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, thank you. I love rising tides lift all boats, right? So I love it. Thank you so much. Okay, Kristi. Well, you have an awesome day, and we'll stay tuned to see what you do at Aspen. We're excited about that too.
Thank you.
See ya.
Individual Contributor is hosted and produced by Meredith Ulmer and Kelsey Kozad, with producing and editing by Jesse Hummelgarn. Music is called Open Spaces by Hybridas and can be found on Upbeat. Get new episodes and catch up on past episodes by following Individual Contributor on YouTube and your favorite podcast app.